What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcoming new edition, very shortened edition, Batter Up podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood Sports Infinity Network. I am Mike Rifkin. This is another edition of Rifkin Reacts. And we have breaking news in Major League Baseball. Kyle Tucker, the coveted outfielder, the top free agent on the market, has a new home. It is not with the Toronto Blue Jays. It is not with the New York Mets. It is not even a return to Chicago with the Cubbies. Kyle Tucker has agreed to a 4-year contract worth $240 million with the Los Angeles Dodgers. There are opt outs after the second and third years of the deal. Jeff Passan had it first. I believe Jesse Rogers also had the numbers first. Let me say this. So here is how we're going to go about this. We are going to break this down. We are going to talk not specifically on Tucker, but we'll get into the Dodger perspective, and then I'm going to give you the Met perspective of what I would like to see the Mets do next as the pivot. But I do have a problem. I have a problem with a couple of things. I don't have a problem with Kyle Tucker making this decision. You want another ring, you go to LA, you do what you got to do, pal. You want a ring, go to the Dodgers. It makes total sense in the world. But just know a fan's perspective of you might change. You can't be the guy, you just want to be a guy. And that's fine. That's fair. The Dodgers have plenty of the guys. Shohei Ohtani's the guy. Mookie could be the guy. Freddie Freeman could be the guy. Will Smith could be the guy. Yoshinobu Yamamoto could be the guy. But my problem isn't with the Dodgers. I don't have a problem with the Dodgers. Take care of your business. Do what you got to do to make yourself the best team in baseball. Not a singular problem with it. They are pulling out the playbook of the Yankees of the 90s and early 2000s when George Steinbrenner was alive. Where I have my problems, I have problems with two groups of people. And I'm lumping one person in with a group. My first problem is with Major League Baseball. Yeah, I know. I'm shocked too. Who has a problem with MLB nowadays? And in particular, Rob Manfred, because he allows the ridiculous Shohei Ohtani contract to go down, where the Dodgers are only paying Ohtani, oh, I don't know, it's $2 million per year. Everything else is deferred money. That's what allows the Dodgers to make these other deals. The fact that they have deferred money on other deals, which by the way is not a crime, but the fact that Shohei Ohtani is on their books for $2 million, that should be a crime. No problem with it. The Dodgers found the loophole. They're taking advantage of it. Rob Manfred was too clueless to see it. And now we're guaranteed something, guys. We're guaranteed that there will be a lockout in 2027. Kyle Tucker signing with the Dodgers guarantees there's going to be a lockout. While this is not the Dodgers' fault, this is Rob Manfred's fault. These are small market owners' faults. And here's the other thing. I don't want to hear the word. I don't want to hear the freaking word. And someone out there is tweeting it or they're posting it on Facebook that MLB needs to institute a salary cap. No, that's bull. Salary cap, forget a salary cap. Major League Baseball needs to install a salary floor. If your problem is with the Dodgers, then you're blind to the problem because the problem isn't the Dodgers. The problem should be Rob Manfred. And the fact that this guy is clueless enough. By the way, Tony Clark as well. They were so clueless that they let this slide. The Ohtani for $2 million. That's who you blame. You blame Tony Clark. You blame Rob Manfred. You blame the guys in charge. And then you can have a problem with the other owners who don't want to spend a freaking dime. But you don't blame the Dodgers. This isn't on the Dodgers. You want to sit there and complain because they're an all-star team? Okay, go for it. The 2000 Yankees were an all-star team. The 2009 Yankees were an all-star team. The all-star teams don't always win, guys. That's the thing. You could be the best team money can buy. Doesn't mean you're going to win. It doesn't mean jack. But now let's look at this from a Dodger perspective. Kyle Tucker is an outfielder. The Dodgers needed an outfielder. Kyle Tucker probably slots in, probably in the 3 hole, I would presume, because you're going to. I'm going to think about that lineup right now. Would be Ohtani's leading off. Mookie's probably in the 2 hole. Tucker in the 3 hole. Maybe Will Smith at 4. Freddie hitting 5. Maybe that's how you line it up. And then you go Muncy, Edman. By the way, I haven't even mentioned Teoscar Hernandez. So maybe it'd be Teoscar hitting behind Freddie. And then you're into Muncy, Edman, and Andy Pages. It's a hell of a lineup. Followed by a hell of a rotation. Led by Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Snell. Let's go on and on. Dodgers might go 161-1. Who knows? The other grouping I have a problem with is the media. And the reason I have a problem with the media is when Steve Cohen came along, everyone was afraid and, Steve Cohen, he could throw his money around, blah, 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 blah. And they get a little bit upset. You could hear it. Dodgers do it willy-nilly, and everyone's like, ooh, the Dodgers. Everyone wants to be like the Dodgers. It's a double standard. There's such a double standard when it comes to the Dodgers. And listen, again, I don't blame the Dodgers. I would want one of the best players in baseball on my team. He's going to make $60 million a year. That's second in the league, only behind Ohtani. And let's not forget, Ohtani, most of that's in deferred money. Yay. We don't know the Tucker deferred money if there's any yet. I'll keep refreshing Twitter to see if I'm going to get it. If I'm going to see it while we're still going here. The Mets offered, I think, $50 million a year, $51 million a year. Fine. I don't care what the Mets offered Kyle Tucker. Because quite frankly, Kyle Tucker now is just another name. He's just another name on a list of the guys the Mets have failed to sign this offseason. And I look around and I can hear, I've been thinking this is going to be the main focus. The main focus is going to be the Mets, not the Dodgers. Dodgers are going to win the National League West again. They're going to win another 100 games. They're definitely going to be the World Series. They're going to win the World Series again. And until we find out when baseball starts up again, they'll be the defending champs. But the Mets. And that's where I'm going to spend the bulk of this. I know next week, myself and the old ops guy are definitely going to do an episode of Batter Up. we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame, which is coming up, I think, Tuesday. See what happens. But this has been an offseason to forget for the Mets. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And right now, I think if you're a Met fan, you're not mad at the Dodgers for doing what they've done. You're not mad at Steve Cohen. You're not mad at anybody except for one guy. You're mad at David Stearns. And I'm mad at David Stearns. And I'm going to continue to be frustrated and agitated and aggravated because David Stearns has taken a club that underachieved last year and has actually made them get worse. Right now, the Mets are. We don't know where the Mets are. We hear they're in the rotation mark. They're looking at these pitchers. Well, no one signed. By the way, Ranger Suarez came off the board yesterday to the Boston Red Sox. By yesterday, I mean Wednesday. I didn't want Ranger Suarez, so I'm okay with not giving him $5 for $1.30. Framber Valdez is still out there. Zach Gallen is still out there. A trade could be made for somebody. Who's playing first base? Lord have mercy if you're telling me Mark Vientos is playing first base. And the reason being, because Mark Vientos sucked last year. He had one hot stretch right after the All-Star break, and outside of that, Mark Vientos couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat. He's your first baseman. Marcus Semien's at second base. Hopefully he produces more than Jeff McNeil did. Not going to get on the shortstop. Lindor is phenomenal. Brett Beatty's going to be at third base. I'm cool with that. Brett Beatty showed me a lot last year. I'm sure Ronnie Mauricio is going to get some time at third base as well. Hell, Mauricio might be the everyday DH at this point, too. Then there's the outfield. We only know Juan Soto's playing right field. They don't have a center fielder unless Tyrone Taylor's going to play there every day. And we know his bat's not good enough to play there every day. Left field, Carson Bench, Cliff Floyd coming back. Are they going to sign Cody Bellinger? Which, by the way, I am also not for. I didn't care about the Nemo trade for this reason. I knew once the Mets didn't make the playoffs, changes would come. Nemo's been a struggling outfielder for a few years. He's had some knee issues. He's had plantar fasciitis, but he produced at the plate. Now, while he didn't get to every fly ball, but you know what? Nemo was the guy who hustled his ass off. The one that should bother everyone. I'm not even bothered anymore by Edwin Diaz. Because Edwin Diaz did the same thing Kyle Tucker did. Took the easy way out. By the easy way out, it's go to the Dodgers. Not mad at Edwin Diaz anymore. Not mad at David Stearns for trusting Devin Williams over Edwin Diaz. I'm pissed off about that still. At David Stearns, not Edwin Diaz. I'm still a little ticked off at Edwin Diaz, but that's a whole nother conversation. But the one that should bother you the most is Pete Alonso. The Pete one is the one that bothers me the most. And I get it. And I've heard people say this on their own podcasts, on social media, on SNY, on whatever you want to freaking talk about. They didn't want Pete last year. The market fell back to them. That's why people came mad again. And they're right. They're 1,000% right. They didn't want Pete back last year. But when the guy hits 38, drives in 120 behind Soto, he should have been priority one. Instead, I got to deal with this smug, arrogant GM. Pete goes to Baltimore for 5 years. Who are the men? And by the way, let's look at this from a real perspective for a second. Who is David Stearns freaking landed here? Oh, Mike, he landed Sean Mania 2 years ago. Okay, he paid Sean Mania bargain bin money. Mania goes out, has a great year. Then they overpay him for 3 and 75. What did Mania do last year? Nothing. Oh, Mike, he look at what he did at the deadline last year. Ryan Helsley, that worked. That really worked. Oh, Mike, you're missing it. He landed one, so he didn't land one. So Steve Cohen landed one. So Steve Cohen and his pocket money, that landed one. So David Stearns hasn't landed any big fish. He's continued to miss out. He is managing this. And listen, I know the plan was run prevention. You got to score runs. As bad as they were defensively, they also sucked offensively last year. I don't want Cody Bellinger. I don't think Cody Bellinger. Where's he playing? Is he playing center field? Is he playing first base? Where's Cody Bellinger playing next year if he's playing for the Mets? And again, you're going to be too freaking left-handed heavy like you would have been if he signed Kyle Tucker. I'm not angry that the Mets didn't sign Kyle Tucker. I'm not angry that Kyle Tucker went to the Dodgers. I'm not angry. What I'm angry about is that once again, this offseason, this general manager has spurned his fan base. And until he does something good this offseason, I don't even right now, I don't even know if the Mets are a third place team in the NL East. Because they're not better than the Phillies, and I don't even know if they're better than the Atlanta Braves. Are they better than the Marlins? I don't know. I've always been for, I would love to get the young guys to play. Always been for it. This owner has had championship aspirations. This team 2 years ago was 2 wins away from going to a World Series. And now, this winter, the winner of 25-26, they've been spurned by two guys who they had in their back pocket, left them. You wanted to give the fan base hope. And listen, I'm not taking a shot at the guy. Jim Duquette kept making it seem like the Mets and Tucker it was going to come. I don't know if David Stearns has this guy on his payroll or not, but it bothers me that we get sucked into this. Oh, the Mets can land a guy. The Mets can actually land something this offseason. And they don't. And I'm not going to speak for every Met fan. I can't. I won't. I'll speak for me and how I feel. I was for David Stearns coming in. I had no problem with it. I thought it was a great hire. David Stearns has a lot to prove. between now and spring training. There's still a lot of guys on the market. He can still make a trade, but he's going to have to do some big things to get back in my good graces. Because right now, David Stearns is failing this fan base. You want people to come to Citi Field, where there was a record attendance last year. You do something. You've given us the middle finger too many times this offseason. Whether it was the Edwin Diaz signing, whether it's Pete leaving, or this, you're giving the fans the finger. And your smugness and your arrogance might lead to your downfall. And I don't want David Stearns to fail. I don't want him to fail. I don't want this team to fail. I've seen this team fail too many times. And then you get that glimmer of hope in 22. That glimmer of hope. Or 2 years ago, whatever was, they give you that glimmer of hope. They're 2 wins away from a World Series. They land Juan Soto, and you're thinking, okay, here the frick they come. They got to a hot start last year. They're the best team in baseball. And they crashed and failed. And they crashed and burned. And they haven't put out the flames. The flames have expanded since the season ended. Whether it's the loss of Edwin Diaz, whether it's the loss of Pete Alonso, whether it's losing out on these free agents. I get it. David Stearns doesn't want to give out more than 3-year deals. Understand it. Guess what? It's not working. The Mets need to do something. Steve Cohen said as introductory press conference, he wanted to be the East Coast version of the Dodgers. Guess what? You're not the East Coast version of the Dodgers. You'll never be the East Coast version of the Dodgers. For 3 reasons. One, there's a lockout coming because Rob Manfred and Tony Clark were dumb enough to allow Shohei Ohtani to sign on board for $2 million. That's issue 1. Issue 2 is you need a general manager who's willing to go out all out for you and make the right signings. And David Stearns has to win back this fan base. And if that is giving an extra year to someone, and I'm telling you right now, someone's either going to comment on this and say, well, they should sign Bellinger. I'm not giving Bellinger $200 million, and I'm not giving Bellinger 7 years. David Stearns needs to figure this out because he's failed this winter. Look at this team. This is a team that won 83 games with Alonso, Diaz, Nimmo. Now look at this. There's no Alonso. There's no Nimmo. There's no Edwin Diaz. They went from 83 wins to maybe the low 70s. On top of it, they're running back the same freaking rotation that couldn't get you 5 innings last year. If you're a Met fan today, tonight, Kyle Tucker signed with the Dodgers was the worst news possible. If he had signed 10 years with the Toronto Blue Jays, that's a fine thing for the Mets. Because you knew the Mets were never doing that. But him taking 4 years, and I get it, $60 million a year. It's a bad look. It's a bad look for the Mets. I get it. He wanted to be a Dodger because he didn't want to be the guy. Good luck to Kyle Tucker. Good luck to the Dodgers. Not that they need it. And you know what? You know what? No. You know what? I'm going to give one more. Congrats to Rob Manfred. Congrats to Rob Manfred on this. Really assuring us now that there will be a 2027 lockout. Bravo, Rob. Way to go, buddy. To get to be the worst commissioner in sports, man, you must do something right, Rob, because you've overtaken Gary Bettman, and that took a lot of work. So good for you. That'll do it for this edition of Rifkin Reacts here, Batter Up Podcast, sponsored by the Dugout of Millwood Sports Insanity Network. Again, me and the old ops guy will be live again some point next week, talking about the Hall of Fame, some other signings that have gone down. We'll go way more in depth on that. Again, follow the socials: Facebook, the Sports Insanity Network; Twitter, S Insanity Real. You can follow me personally on Twitter. Pun Master Rifkin, same name on Blue Sky. That'll do it for this edition, Batter Up Podcast. Thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe here to the YouTube page. And we will talk to you again next week, guys.